article, I don't remember where it was, but about coyotes in the urban area all around Los Angeles. And I've been fascinated by this since I moved to LA. The first time I saw a coyote was in 1994 when I first moved here. I was in Burbank, and I had an apartment. And one of those, they have those pre-furnished Oakwoods Gardens apartment on Olive Street. You know where that is?
Not off the top of my head, but
it's where people always, when they transition to LA, they get one of these pre-furnished apartments. So anyway,
yeah.
I'm driving up Olive and I saw these coyotes, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a coyote, and I was like, "This is crazy! Like, this is in Burbank. This is in a residential area." And they were just hanging out. And I pulled over, and I stopped, and I rolled down the window, and I was staring at them, and they're staring at me, and they didn't give a shit about me. They were so calm. And they didn't run, and I just remember thinking, this is so strange. These are like wild dogs that live like right amongst us. And then from then on, I've had some encounters. I had a coyote steal a chicken from my yard. I watched him hop the fence with a chicken in his mouth. I've had quite a few encounters with coyotes, but I'm absolutely fascinated by them.
I mean, they've been amazing. I've been working with them now for almost 15 years, actually a little bit more than that now. And I've seen them do some amazing things. I mean, they're able to live in some of the most urban environments we can imagine. I mean, I'm tracking them right next to, I don't know if you know where the Westlake neighborhood is in downtown LA, but
yeah.
I had a coyote running that neighborhood, which when I first drove through there, so I worked in Chicago for a long time. We were tracking coyotes in some incredibly urban areas there, like right along Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. But in Chicago, there's some green spots where when you get down in LA, there's not a lot of open spots.
Yeah.
There's some little vacant lots and stuff. But I tracked this coyote for about 9 months down there in that area, and she was just amazing. Like, she was running the streets. She'd kind of hang out in these little vacant lots. And what was even more amazing is that no one was really complaining about her. We actually talked to people in some of the houses and stuff. They were actually fascinated to see them versus being like, they're in my backyard. What are they doing?
Well, people have always had a weird relationship with coyotes. I had Dan Flores on the podcast last month, who's the author of Coyote America.
Yep.
And he's a wildlife historian and has just some amazing insight into like the relationship the coyotes had way back with the Native Americans. They thought they were gods in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I actually listened to your podcast with Dan. It was great. Dan's got some pretty interesting facts just in his book in general, things I didn't actually know about before. It's kind of nice to have a historian tie in some of the facts. I get asked lots of questions about where the coyotes came from, how they're moving around.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to have something like Dan's book to kind of reference people to.
I think most people in the downtown LA probably welcome something like a coyote because it's kind of cool, to have this thing like hanging around you, as long as you don't have a dog or a cat that it snatches.
Yeah, and that's definitely the case. A lot of people think it's cool, but they do cause problems. I'm actually dealing with one in the Silver Lake neighborhood that keeps going up to people walking their dogs and trying to, it's got a den in somebody's backyard. It's actually denning under their deck, so the deck's open, and she put our 7 pups underneath this den.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's pretty crazy. But she would basically, anybody gets close with a dog, she comes out and tries to run them off. And this is pretty common during pupping season. This is like the time when most people have issues with coyotes because they're trying to protect their dens. I mean, we're all obviously protective of our offspring. So.
Right. So they think that the dog is going to find the pups and kill them or something?
I mean, we don't really know why they're doing it. We assume that's probably the case. They come up, and most of the attacks have been where they just come up behind the dog and start trying to like nip at its back, and the people move on. People freak out. As far as I know, there hasn't been any where the coyote actually like draw blood on the dog, so it's almost more like it's like, get the hell out of here. Right.
So they're just scaring them. They're not trying to. They're not actually being predators.
That's what it seems like for the most part. I mean, they definitely do kill little dogs.
Yeah.
And occasionally end up fighting with big dogs as well, but that's rare.
Wow. So what are they eating? Like, especially the one in downtown.
Yeah, so that's interesting. We've actually been doing this study working with a bunch of citizen scientists, and I don't know if that's the story you read or not, but we're basically having people collect coyote scat from around downtown LA, and then we're actually breaking the coyote scat up to look what's in it, and we're seeing a huge variety of things. I mean, lots of fruits and stuff. They're actually big time into vegetation type stuff. They eat a lot of fruits, and in the urban environment, obviously, we've got peaches and plums and all kinds of crazy fruiting stuff that they take advantage of. But they're also eating rats and squirrels, cats, insects. We see things like earwigs and those big old potato bugs that people see. I mean, they're just eating almost anything you could think of, they're taking advantage of. Human trash.
Well, I've had them in my yard for a long time, and one of the things that surprised me is how much coyote scat that I find with berries in it. Like, I didn't know that they were omnivores. I mean, they really are omnivores. It's not like a dog or a cat. I mean, they eat pretty much everything.
Yeah, I mean, coyotes can take advantage, and that's why they're able to live amongst us. I mean, because even when there's not a lot of prey available, they're able to take advantage of these different fruiting trees.
Yeah, you know, I was talking with a friend about it, and he was saying that he hates them, and you know, he wants to kill them all and all this stuff. And I was saying, but ever notice that you don't see any rats? Like we hardly have any rats. Yeah. Like, it's so rare that you see a rat or a mouse in my area, and I think a big part of that is because you hear coyotes all the time, and I think they're eating them all.
I mean, they definitely take advantage of them. I mean, there's other predators too. I'm not sure where you live exactly. Owls and
hawks and
bobcats
stuff. And
all those different things. Definitely take advantage of those prey as well. But yeah, coyotes, I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah, they really are a fascinating animal. So this one that got to downtown LA, do you know like when it arrived?
I don't know when it arrived, so I kind of drove through there looking to see where I might be able to collar a few animals so we could kind of see what's going on and how these animals are persisting down there. And actually,
how do you do that?
How do I see where they're persisting?
No, how do you collar them?
Oh, how do I collar them? So first we have to capture them, so we'll put out traps, we'll capture them, and then once I get them in a trap, I'll go out with a pole, I'll pin them to the ground, and then I'll hold them down.
Jesus.
I'll put a muzzle on them and hold their feet together. And then we'll throw a collar on them. We'll take blood to look for disease.
You don't trank them?
We don't tranquilize them.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, they actually go very docile. They're a lot like a dog. Once you kind of show them that you're the dominant thing, they kind of just lay over. I mean, you still have to be careful. Obviously, they can turn and bite you if you don't muzzle them.
Right.
But usually, once you get them down that first time, they usually just lay there until you're done.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it usually takes me somewhere 35, 40 minutes to do the whole thing. And they just lay there. They're not fighting me.
Do you have video of that?
I'm sure I do.
I want to see that. That's got to be a trip.
Yeah, no.
I would think that they would be like a wild cat. Like, I've had a feral cat before, and I had her when she was a kitten, or he rather, when he was a kitten, and he was like a spaz. Like, you couldn't even hold on to him. He would freak out and climb the curtains and hiss and sputter at you, and that was like a little domestic cat that was born outside.
Oh, yeah. We do drug any of our cats we catch. So we catch bobcats. It's another study that we're doing a lot of. We've actually had a bobcat project going on since 1996, and so we've been collaring those guys for a long time.
They're not docile.
They're not docile. We don't trust them. Raccoons are another species. You don't handle those guys undrugged.
Oh, yeah, I would imagine.
They'll make you pay the price.
Isn't that crazy? Like, people don't realize that raccoons are predators.
Yeah, well, they're definitely omnivores,
right,
like just like the coyotes are. They actually eat a lot of fruit and stuff. They take, I mean, part of them living in an urban environment is they're just taking massive advantage of our garbage.
Right.
Raccoons just, I mean, I've seen amazing photos of like 13, 14 raccoons in one garbage can all feasting down.
I have chickens in my backyard, and this one raccoon was by my chicken coop the other day, and I flashed a light on him, and he walked towards the light. I was like, look at this cocky bitch. He just started walking at me, and I got nervous. I was like, I don't have a weapon on me or nothing. I thought a flashlight, he'd be like, whoa, let me get out of here. He's just looking right at the flashlight, walking towards me, you know, trying to get to the chicken coop.
Yeah, well, you'd be amazed how many people feed them.
Oh,
because they're so dang cute.
Right.
I mean, big old mask on them. People are like, oh, they're starving out there. They can't find their own food. And so they feel like they need to feed them. And same thing with coyotes, too. People feel like these animals can't fend for themselves, which is ridiculous because they're not able to make it there because we're feeding them. They're making it because there's resources for them to take advantage of. Yeah,
I would imagine they probably play. I mean, like I said, I think in my neighborhood they do play an important part of keeping the rodent population down. But in downtown, there's got to be a ton of rodents as well. I mean, downtown, for people who don't know, is like the only area in all of LA that really looks like a city.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I drove through there. I mean, after tracking coyotes in Chicago, I didn't think they'd be in some of the areas they are in LA. There seem to be everywhere I look. I get photos of coyotes on our cameras or get people reporting them to us.
And this one that's in downtown is just a single coyote by herself?
No, actually, she's got a whole pack. So I collared her, and then within a couple, she was actually lactating when I caught her, so I know she had pups. And then we ended up seeing her with 5 pups probably a week later. And there was actually a ambulance that drove by, and she just started howling, and all the pups were out there yipping. And this is all like in this little vacant lot between 2 houses.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they just find these areas where people aren't.
Yeah, and so before we collared them, the one thing I always heard is, oh, the coyotes are coming in from Griffith Park, or they're coming in from Elysian Park and coming into our communities, and they're just here for a night or 2 nights causing problems and leaving. Well, that's not what we're seeing. Definitely, once we threw these collars on these animals, we're like, no, they've got pretty small home ranges. They're kind of living just in the urban environment. They're not going back and forth. Wow. They're living with us.
So do you feel like it's a good thing or a bad thing to have them around, or just a thing?
I think it's just a thing. I mean, it depends on your perspective. I think it's bad when people think we need to feed them. We need to do these things like to encourage them and make them more comfortable with us. That's not a good thing, because that's when bites and that kind of stuff happen. But when it comes to the coyotes and stuff living in these urban environments, it's really all about us. It's more about managing people, getting people to quit feeding them or quit. I mean, one thing I encourage people to do is scare the stupid coyote off. Like, because there's lots of people that have little issues that occur with the coyotes. Their cats get taken, or the coyotes start just sitting there watching them. I had somebody complain recently because a coyote was sitting behind their yard looking at their wife in the jacuzzi.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So
this coyote's a pervert.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, come on. Like, all he has to do, if he really doesn't want it there, go back there and run the thing off. But
so
he's not willing to do it.
They call you and tell you that a coyote's staring at their wife?
Yeah, you'd be amazed the calls we get about coyotes. People are still not comfortable with them being there, even though they've been there for a long time. It's just people cannot get comfortable with the idea of there being a medium-sized predator in these urban environments.
They're like the perfect size to almost get away with it too. You know, like it's not like a wolf. Like if a wolf was around, everybody would be freaking out. Like it's too big.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
a coyote is like, 40 pounds, something like that.
And that's a big coyote.
What's a small one?
So our average is around 25 to 27 pounds.
Wow, okay.
So you're really not
pretty small.
They are, and that's why I'm always like, when people are so scared of them, I'm like, it's really not that big of an animal. I mean, there's a lot of these small dogs are bigger than that.
They're smart though, man. They're really clever. One of them, he or she essentially, what you would say, honey-dicked my dog, and tricked my dog into. Do you know what it's like when a chicken molts?
Yeah, I actually have chickens as well.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So my chicken was molting, so I had to separate her from the rest of the chickens, so she wasn't in a nesting box, and I put her in a cage by herself. If you let them sit in a cage for a few days, they figure out that they don't really have an egg, and then they go back to their normal behavior. Yeah. So this coyote was too small to knock over the cage, but my Mastiff is big enough to do it. So she literally tricked my Mastiff into coming out with her towards where the chickens are. He knocks over the cage. She steals the chicken and hops over the fence.
Wow, did you see all this happen?
I caught him with another chicken in his mouth. And I was like, you motherfucker. And then I see the coyote jump over the fence with the chicken. Like, he was with the coyote right next to it. He thought it was his friend. Like, he was treating the coyote like, this is my friend. She's cool. We hang out together. And she tricked him into knocking over this small pen. You know, he's like 140 pounds. Oh, wow. He just smashed that thing and broke it open. And she grabbed the chicken, thanks, pew, and hopped over the fence. And I watched her. I was sitting there. I was playing like Monopoly or something with my wife and my kids. We're sitting in the living room. And I see the coyote running across the backyard with the chicken in its mouth, and hopped over this 5-foot fence like it didn't even exist. Just boing, just right over the top of it. And I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, they're incredibly smart. I mean, heck, living downtown, they've got to be. I've seen, like, crossing roads, it's amazing. Like, I watch them walk up to these busy roads. They stop about 10 feet shy, kind of sit there listening. Then they'll peek around the corner and look both ways, and then they'll run across.
Well, I've heard that they understand traffic lights now. There was an article I read yesterday about coyotes and traffic lights, that there's real evidence that coyotes understand when that beep, beep, you know, that beep sound that they use for blind people, that coyotes understand that that means the cars aren't allowed to go, and that's when they walk.
Huh, I haven't seen that one. That's interesting. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's incredible watching them move around this urban environment and just dealing with us and dealing with traffic. Like, they get around. I mean, they'll come out in the street. All suddenly somebody will peek out in the street to go around their car, and they'll cut between the cars and go down the sidewalk. Like, they figure out our movements and how to avoid us pretty quick.
How many do you think there are in the greater LA area?
I get asked that question a lot, and it's a hard one to answer because we don't know, because they are pack animals. So you could end up with easily, it could be just 2 animals in an area, or it could be 2 adults with 7 young, or it could even be 5, 6, 7, 10 adults together with a pack of young as well, because a lot of times the young from the year before may not disperse. If there's enough food available, they'll keep hanging in there until they are able to find their own territory.
So whenever someone would give an estimation, it's really just a rough guess.
It's a very rough guess. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll just try to be like, okay, this is how big of an area a coyote uses, and then be like, okay, there's this much area in LA, and throw a number out there, but there's a lot of variables that come in.
And do you feel like the numbers increased over the past few years, or?
Definitely not over the last few years. It's possible over the long run, because I know there are some reports of places that there weren't coyotes. Like the Baldwin Hills, there was some work done where they identified all the different animals there, and coyotes weren't in their list.
So they use trail cams? Like, what did they use to identify the animals?
Back then, I think they were doing a lot of track surveys and just going out there into the field and looking for them.
Track surveys meaning like looking at the ground?
Exactly.
Like
yeah, and with coyotes, they leave enough scat different places. Like, if they were looking hard for them, they would have found them.
How can you tell the difference between coyote scat and dog scat?
Usually, so dog scat is almost always just dog food. And it doesn't, these coyote scats end up getting more spiraled inside. And so they'll be really tapered on the ends, where dog scat can be tapered, but it's usually just drastically different.
Huh. Why is it tapered?
It's partially just the way their digestive system works, and they're getting all this hair in there because they're eating these animals, and so it gets more and more spiraled as it comes out. And we can tell them apart from like bobcats, because bobcats kind of get this, they're more almost, I don't want to call it a pellet, but they're smaller segmented, and they're kind of just one side's concave and one side's convex of each pellet. And so you can tell them apart. That's actually can be more difficult for some people than the dog and the coyote.
I found some mountain lion shit once in Santa Monica. Not in Santa Monica, excuse me, Santa Barbara. And it was very disturbing because it was a rope, like a fat rope of hairy shit. And I was like, what is this from? And I sent it to a friend of mine who is, he's very knowledgeable about animals. He's like, it's almost definitely a mountain lion. I was like, whoa, like somebody got here.
No, yeah.
Because it was pretty thick rope, like a human-sized log with all this hair in it. It's just,
we actually have a lion study going in our mountains, too. We've been calling our mountain lions for a long time. I'm sure you've probably heard of P22 in Griffith Park.
I have.
Yeah, that's actually an animal that one of my colleagues collared.